أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. With God's will, we're planning to start the 19th word. This is 19th word. We will start the word from the beginning, inshallah, and in my page, in my book, it is page 245.
I did not praise Muhammad with my words. Rather, my words were made praiseworthy by Muhammad. Yes, this word is beautiful, but what makes it so is the most beautiful of all things, the attributes and qualities of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Also being the 14th flash, this word consists of 14 droplets. First droplet. There are three great and universal things which make known to us our sustainer. One is the book of the universe, a droplet whose testimony we have heard from the 13 flashes together with the 13th word of the reciting Nur. Another is the seal of the prophets, peace and blessings be upon them, the supreme sign of the book of the universe. The other is the Quran of mighty state. Now we must become acquainted with the seal of the prophets, peace be upon them, who is the second and articulate proof, and must listen to him. Yes, consider the collective personality of this proof. The face of the earth has become his mosque, Mecca, his mihrab, and Medina, his pulpit. Our prophet, peace be upon him, this clear proof, is leader of all the believers, preacher to all mankind, the chief of all the prophets, the Lord of all the saints, the leader of a circle for the remembrance of God, comprising all the prophets and saints. He is a luminous tree, whose living roots are all the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints, whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles, and all the saints relying on their wonder-working, confirm, and corroborate. For he declares and claims, there is no God but God, and all on left and right, that is, those luminous reciters of God's names, lined up in the past and the future, repeat the same words, and through their consensus, in effect declare, you speak the truth, and what you say is right. What false idea has the power to meddle in a claim which is thus affirmed and corroborated by thousands? Second droplet. Just as that luminous proof of divine unity is affirmed by the unanimity and consensus of those two wings, so do hundreds of indications in the revealed scriptures, like the Torah and the Bible, and the thousands of signs that appeared before the beginning of his mission, and the well-known news given by the voices from the unseen and the unanimous testimony of the soothsayers. The indications of the thousands of his miracles, like the splitting of the moon, and the justice of the Sharia, all confirm and corroborate him. So, too in his person, his laudable morals, which were at the summit of perfection, and in his duties, his complete confidence and elevated qualities, which were of the highest excellence, and his extraordinary fear of God, worship, seriousness, and fortitude, which demonstrated the strength of his belief, and his total certainty, and his complete steadfastness. These all show as clearly as the sun how utterly faithful he was to his cause. Third droplet. If you wish, come, let us go to Arabian Peninsula, to the era of bliss. In our imaginations, we shall see him at his duties and visit him. Look, we see a person distinguished by his fine character and beautiful form. In his hand is a miraculous book, and on his tongue a truthful address. He is delivering a pre-eternal sermon to all mankind indeed, to man, jinn, and the angels, and to all beings. He solves and expounds the strange riddle of all mystery of the world's creation. He discovers and solves the abstruse talisman, which is the mystery of the universe. and he provides convincing and satisfying answers to the three awesome and difficult questions that are asked of all beings and have always bewildered and occupied minds. Where do you come from? What are you doing here? What is your destination? Fourth droplet. See, he spreads such a light of truth that if you look at the universe as being outside the luminous sphere of his truth and guidance, you see it to be like a place of general mourning, and beings strangers to one another and hostile, and inanimate beings to be like ghastly corpses, and living creatures like orphans weeping at the blows of death and separation. Now look, through the light he spreads, that place of universal mourning has been transformed into a place where God's names and praises are recited in joy and ecstasy. The foreign hostile beings have become friends and brothers, while the dumb, dead, inanimate creatures have all become familiar officials and docile servants. And the weeping, complaining orphans are seen to be either reciting God's names and praises or offering thanks at being released from their duties.
Yes, this word is beautiful, but what makes it so is the most beautiful of all things, the attributes and qualities of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. So he's saying that what makes this particular word that we're reading, the 19th word, is the attributes and qualities of this personality of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Okay, and then he has some reference also being the 14th flash. This word consists of 14 droplets. Okay, so the first droplet. There are three great and universal things. Three great and universal things which make known to us our sustainer. One is the book of the universe, a jot of whose testimony we have heard from the 13 flashes together with the 13th lesson from the Arabic Risale-i-Nur. Another is the seal of the prophets. Peace and blessings be upon him, the supreme sign of the book of the universe. So that's the number 2, second one. Okay, and the other, which is number 3, is the Quran of mighty stature. Okay, now we must become acquainted with the seal of the prophets, peace be upon him, who is the second and articulate proof, and must listen to him. Okay, so in this first paragraph, the author says that there are 3 great and universal things that can let human beings know who their sustainer is, who is giving them existence or keeping their existence, right, and sustaining them, nourishing them, providing for whatever their human needs are, as we studied previously, as Berkan was mentioning, on what it meant to be human. And the first item or the element the author lists is that the book of the universe. So referring to the universe itself, basically. So the universe is a witness or tells, or is one of the signs or the universal things that allows us to know our sustainer. And the second one is the seal of the prophets. Peace and blessings be upon him, referring to the Prophet Muhammad, who is said to be the supreme sign of the book of the universe. So the sign of what this universe refers to. And I guess this is what the author's planning to focus on. And the third one is the Quran of mighty stature. So that's the third way we can get to know who our sustainer is. So I will continue unless anybody has any comment or any clarification that is missed or is needed.
I have a question. So when he talks about the prophet, he says the supreme sign of the book of the universe. So first he says the first thing that make known to us our sustainer is the book of universe. And then says the prophet is the second one, which is the supreme sign, or ayat kabir, right? The supreme sign of this book, the book of universe. So how should I understand the prophet being the supreme sign of the book of the universe?
So how do you understand the universe being a book first?
How I understand universe being the book, being created in a way that I can read and reach the author.
So an apple tree is a verse, a sign.
Yes.
Then what would be the greatest verse of a book? What would that be?
I see. Like the verse which tells me more or most regarding its author or whatever the message is.
Like the punchline of a
Yes,
paragraph,
yes.
or
Or
a text.
a paragraph which summarizes everything, maybe. Okay, I see. Jazakallah khair.
And this is part of the book. So, but since he is talking about all three as a book, so the universe is a book, messenger is a book, and the scripture which is already a book. Because the book that we have known so far is the book, like Quran, and it's literally a book. But he is saying that the universe itself is a book, but it's an unconventional book for us. So like an apple tree is part of this book. Now, now that we are starting to provide this new definition for a book, it is like a tangible book. You can touch it. And now the messenger is another verse of this first type of book. So it's again a tangible, real verse, not as untouchable as as abstract as a book like scripture, but he's a verse which you can interact with a physical being.
So how did you link to the supreme sign of the book? You said like that's like the highlight, the major part or theme of the actual book.
Yeah, so it is the supreme sign is Ayatul Kubra. So like it is the biggest verse in the book. So it is the most highlighted verse, highlighted sentence or paragraph or chapter of the book. This is how I understand the supreme sign. So it's a sign like all the rest of the book, but this one is the best or the most highlighted sign of the book among other verses.
Sounds good. So the one that is the most standing out, the ultimate or supreme sign that can be, or the clearest also, I would say. Okay. Any other comment or question by anyone?
When we say Ayatul Kubra or the supreme sign, for example, like there is Ayatul Kubra in the Quran itself, right? And why is it called Ayatul Kubra? Especially like when it comes to the message in the flow of the text versus one specific verse, let's say. So I think it should be maybe in the same line when it comes to the universe as a whole, what it signifies and how that like meaning is reflected in a very concise manner in a, one single example.
Yeah, so the supreme sign is Ayatul Kubra. So
or one single entity. So it must have something to do with the meaning of the whole book versus the same meaning being reflected in a smaller scale but in a more concise manner.
Can we also think it in the analogy of what they call the best artwork of the master, ustalık eseri? Masterpiece maybe? I don't know. Like when you think of a painter, there are certain artworks, paintings, but there's usually one which tells you most about the painter, most about his talents, his, I don't know, the style, and so on. Maybe we can take it in that sense as well, as addition to what you said.
Okay.
I have a question also. I mean, we don't have to discuss it, but I think it's important to understand what it really means. In the same sentence, it says, another is the seal of the prophets, peace and blessings be upon him, the supreme sign of the book of the universe. So, the seal of the prophets, what does that mean? And how is that related to being the supreme sign?
In Turkish the original, it's Hatemül Enbiya, which is like an ending of the Enbiya.
It also means stamp seal.
I don't know, like I thought this seal was referring to not the prophet himself, but somehow prophethood. And now looking at the Turkish original, I might be wrong, but it sounds like it's just referring to his being the last prophet, who concludes the message, kind of. But I might be wrong.
Yeah, that's how I understand also the seal of the prophets. So all the prophets that have been spreading the message, teaching, and now this is the ultimate. Since this is the supreme sign, this is the major seal, or the actual, something that establishes it solidly. That's how I understand, or affirms it and then puts the final seal on it. Yes, this is absolutely right. That's what I understood by the seal of the prophets. And then I think the explanation of the supreme sign further corroborates that, the seal of the prophets is the supreme sign of this universe. Basically, without the supreme sign, it's not possible to know the universe. If there's anyone else who wants to comment on this Osman's question of seal of the prophets, please feel free. Otherwise, I can continue. All right. Continuing. Yes. Consider the collective personality of this proof. Consider the collective personality of this proof. The face of the earth has become his mosque. All right, so the face of the earth has become his mosque. Mecca, his mihrab. So I did check what mihrab meant. It's that place in the front of the mosques. So this is obviously symbolic, like what the author means by the mosque, or Mecca his mihrab, and Medina his pulpit. So obviously this is a very heavily loaded sentence, and all these things, for example, the collective personality of this proof, we can discuss on that. And what does it mean, the face of the earth becoming his mosque? So from what I can see, like, what do we do in a mosque? Mosque is generally a symbol for a congregation or universal. Everybody can gather and they worship, right? That's a place of worship, basically. So the whole earth is now regarded as a place of worship. Right? So this is what at least this collective personality of this proof, or whatever the second aspect of the seal of the prophets, the supreme sign of the book of the universe, is referring to. That this is the collective personality of this proof. Basically, the face of the earth has become his mosque. So now everything in the whole world, the whole universe, is now representing, or has become a more universal kind of a place of worship. Mecca, his mihrab. So I understand Mecca as being the foundation of his message, of whatever this Prophet Muhammad brought in terms of his message, that Mecca was the reestablishing all the foundations. And that's why it is a very important place and becomes the mihrab. And Medina, his pulpit, where the message is basically declared or announced to the people. So it becomes more vocal and more understandable. That's referred to as whatever his teachings probably in Medina. But I'm open to other ideas and comments. Please go ahead.
So what do you say about the collective personality?
Say it louder, please.
What did we say about collective personality of the Prophet?
We didn't say anything yet. We haven't said. Do you want to say, like, touch upon that?
I guess.
So the proof is the seal of the prophets, peace and blessing be upon him. That's what he says in the previous paragraph, that we must become acquainted with the seal of the prophets, peace and blessing be upon him, who is the second and articulate proof. So this personality of Prophet Muhammad, right, is a proof itself. So now we're going to consider the collective personality of Prophet Muhammad. That's what the collective personality of this proof at least means.
So I thought he was referring to what is the original Shahsi Manevi, right? So he was probably, when he says collective personality, I'm just guessing, is referring to his not his like person as a body or real person who lived 14 centuries ago, but Prophet as a not as a concept, but how would you say it better? Like original Shahsi Manevi, it explains it much better, but like he's not talking about the person, but whatever person refers to, it stands for, that's what he's referring to.
The alternative for this one is this person's physical body exclusively.
Yes.
So let's say here comes, if we apply this to you, your physical self would be what?
What you see, what you interact with.
And when it is this Manevi, as in the original text, it means meaning-wise what it means, not the so the meaning aspect of you, sort of. So
what it represents, maybe.
What it represents.
So it refers to the prophethood rather than prophet himself.
Because in the paragraph, he's going to say that this collective personality, let's use this word, of him has an aspect that looks to the previous prophets and has an aspect that looks to the saints and scholars that came after him. So it's not a thing that only spans 60 years of a life, but apparently it spans the whole humanity, the way that the author is now describing.
The sentence that you are referring, he is a luminous tree whose living roots are all the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints, whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles, and all the saints relying on their wonder-working confirm and corroborate. So, as far as I understand, under the light of what you said, the two of you, when he says collective personality, so I guess that's the reason the translator used the word collective personality, because he's referring to collectively referring to all the prophets, all the saints, or any person who, let's say, builds a bridge between unseen and seen for us, and giving a message in a form that human can understand. Maybe. Messengerhood, yes. That's what you said, right?
This is interesting because now he's talking about the messengerhood of Muhammad, but he's including all the messengers before and all the saints after him, because he said that he is the seal of messengers. So, because it's part of Shahada is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So apparently the author is studying all these different aspects under the Muhammadur Rasulullah part of it. But what is the utility of that is a relevant question. But the definition of author's definition for messengerhood is not lifetime of a person that lived only 60 years at 15 centuries ago.
Okay, inshallah. Yeah, so that's what the author is saying. Consider the collective personality of the Prophet. Okay, so any more comment on like what the earth has become his mosque, Mecca his mihrab, and Medina his pulpit? Because I think this is all, from what it's all very symbolic to me. Like based on what this personality represents, it includes, like it gives definition to the whole universe and makes the whole universe as a place to worship. And again, Mecca, from what I understood, was more of the foundations. That's what Mecca represents, that he established the foundation of in his message for what any human being can come to understand and believe. And Medina is also more of a how to live the life, that's accordingly with the message. That's what Medina would be. If not, I'll continue on. Our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, this clear proof is leader of all the believers, preacher to all mankind, the chief of all the prophets, Lord of all the saints, the leader of a circle for the remembrance of God, the leader of a circle for the remembrance of God, comprising all the prophets and saints. He is a luminous tree whose living roots are all the prophets, Yeah, again, he's emphasizing on all the prophets. Twice already, all the prophets and saints. All the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints. So the living roots are all the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints, whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles. Hold on. He is a luminous tree whose living roots are all the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints, whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles, and all the saints relying on their wonder-working, confirm and corroborate. This phrase is a little strangely worded. Whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles. Okay, so he is a luminous tree whose claims all the prophets relying on the miracles and all the saints relying on their wonder-working, confirm and corroborate. Okay, so again, referring to the personality of Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, that since he is a luminous tree whose claims, so whatever he's teaching is preaching is corroborated and confirmed by all these other prophets and saints. So these, at least this sentence and phrases that I just read, I think, is inclusive of all the prophets and saints, and that everybody is pretty much confirming and supporting each other. And that's why now I think he's going to continue what actually the statement or the message is. So for... Okay, go ahead.
Asim, the way I understand, I might be wrong, which is not much different than what you said, is he has some claims, like he comes with a message, including some claims, and these claims are confirmed and corroborated by all the prophets and saints. This is what I understand from the sentence, but strangely enough, when he talks about the prophets and saints, he also refers to their miracles and wonder-making, as if their miracles and wonder-making has a share in confirming his claims. So this part is a little unusual, let's say, how miracles of other prophets or wonder-working of saints can confirm the claims of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a question I have, or like at the very beginning, what should we understand from the miracles of prophets and wonder-working of saints? That's another question. But anyway, this is what I understood from the sentence.
No, that's perfect. That's how I'm understanding also. So all these, so whatever the claims are, right? So all these prophets are confirming that claim or conforming with the help or assistance of the miracles. And the same thing, saints relying on their wonder working. So whatever the miracles and wonder working is being done is actually confirming that particular claim that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, brings. So the message that he brings, this is being confirmed through the miracles and the wonder working. Yeah, I mean, anybody else wants to comment on this?
Is the previous sentence clear to everybody? Our prophet is the clear proof, is the leader of all believers, spiritual to all mankind. Do you think is there anything like there to be discussed?
Our prophet, this clear proof, is leader of all believers, preacher to all mankind. This part, right?
That whole sentence was especially.
Yeah. That's the sentence.
So in Turkish also, does it say our prophet?
Yes.
I was thinking, because so our, in this sense, I would assume like, because he's referring to the whole earth. So I think our prophet means for the whole universe or for the whole earth. That's what he means by our prophet. So everything in the universe is looking up to this particular messenger, right, as being the clear proof or being the leader. So that's how I took our prophet here. And this clear proof and is leader of all the believers. So that is more of, again, of the universality approach, that it's not just for a particular group of people, or it's not for one person or two, but it's for inclusive of anything that is existing in the universe. It's everything in the universe gets meaning through the message that this prophet brings. So
what I thought when I read this sentence and the previous one, actually, like the first sentence, when he says, earth has become his mosque, Mecca his mihrab, and Medina his pulpit, and then our prophet is the leader of all the believers, preacher to all mankind, the chief of all prophets. I thought he's characterizing this collective personality, like what it means, like what prophethood or messengership means to him, the author. Unfortunately, I don't know what Mecca and Medina specifically refers to in his lifespan. I wish I could, but like overall, what I understand is the way we should approach to him, the way we should approach to prophethood, shouldn't be restricted to, let's say, a single cultural understanding or single worldview. It's about the truth in its entirety, referring to all humankind, referring to all times, the past or future, spanning the entire creation. So I guess this is the way we should also approach to the message as well, not as a guidance to how to live your life, like what to do, what not to do, or what is right, what is wrong, or as a etiquette of moral values. It says it's much more than this. It's a leader of all the believers, preacher to all mankind. So message should touch to every aspect of every human being.
yeah, so like you made a distinction on how, the culture also says the same things, basically, right? That he is the last prophet and he is a leader of all the prophets. But you said there's more to it than what the statement says, right? So can you tell me more, like, so how is this being more, how is this being elaborated further by the author, that there's something more, and what is that more?
We have some confused faces here, Asim, so I also couldn't understand the question. Would you like to repeat and clarify a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so I was listening to you basically, and when you were speaking, you said about that being the leader and leader of all the believers, preacher to all mankind, as is generally understood by the culture, right? Everybody says, yeah, he is the chief of all the prophets, or he is the last of the prophets, so let's believe in him, whatever message he's bringing. Now, obviously, again, based on what you were saying, that now this author is presenting something more than what we normally, like at least what's in the air in terms of understanding what all these things mean, being the leader or the preacher of all mankind. So I said, let's discuss what exactly is more, what more of the understanding this author is presenting on how we should understand what the preacher or the leader of all the believers means.
So like, to me, I think those two like definitions or like description of prophethood or prophet is important because, for example, he doesn't say like he is the leader of the Muslims. He like author using like a specific word saying that he is the leader of all believers. And who defines who believers, like who those believers are, that's also very vague. So like it is not how should I say, the prophet himself or the prophethood as in how you say mistake. How do you say that? Like yeah, as in like I don't want to use the institution, but
Not
anyway,
profession,
like,
right?
no, like institution of the messengership. It is something so universal that it cannot be limited by anyone or any group or any particular culture. So when he says like he's the leader of the believers, I think we should remind ourselves that like, because when we read this kind of text, we automatically think that, oh, he's talking about our prophet, and I am a believer, inshallah. And so he's talking about the Prophet Muhammad, who is the prophet of the Muslims. Even the text doesn't really say that, like, it's very likely that like this is how we are reading the text. So it's something that we should be careful with when we try to understand what exactly the author refers to with those specific terms that he's using. And the other thing is like the preacher to all mankind. Again, like the message, whatever the message is, should be so universal that cannot be made specific to a region or a certain group of people or certain culture. So it should be universal enough, whatever the message is, should be universal enough that will be able to address all the issues or the problems or the questions of all mankind around the globe. And then he talks about the chief of all the prophets. That again, like I think, like it must refer to the messengership, like the institution of the messengership, and they should all somehow have some sort of common ground that they share the same understanding of this life. And Prophet like Muhammad himself being the supreme sign among all, that whatever it means refers to like identified as like the stamp, the seal of the prophet. So in other words, this messengership is a journey throughout the human history, is a journey that started with Adam, continued with Moses and Jesus, and continued with Prophet Muhammad, and it's still continuing with the saints wherever they are. So like there is no such, in other words, there is no such thing that there was an Judaism and there was a Christianity, now there is an Islam. No, there was just only one religion, it was Islam only since the beginning of the time, starting with Adam. But we human beings, whatever we understood from that universal message, we created the Judaism, Christianity, and the, like, let's say not Islam, but like the Muslim version of understanding the religion.
I guess there's a, when you say journey, there's a distinction between saying that our prophet is the best prophet or the leader of the prophets versus a human kind, like including every human being, share the same journey, and our prophet is leader, meaning part of it. Right? Because to be leader of something, you have to be part of something first. Part of the message that was delivered to the entire humanity. So in the first one, when you say our prophet is the leader of the old prophet, is the best prophet, there's a hierarchy, or there's no inclusion of the rest of the people. But when you take it as prophet being preacher to all mankind, meaning regardless of their background, regardless of their culture or their title written in their IDs, we all share the same journey, and all these different prophets represent different aspects or different needs that we have during our journey.
But they all have one common same message, and which is that for he declares and claims there is no God but God. So like that is the foundation of the messengership. And he is the supreme sign, like in addition to the book of the universe and the Quran itself, he is the supreme sign to this claim. But not just him, all the other messengers came with the same claim. And they delivered the same message when it comes to the oneness of the Creator.
So if I ask the question, just to see the big picture, what does the author do here? What is he trying to do? Why is he giving this much of a weird description of messenger? I mean, if he were to say that Muhammad is a person who lived 14 centuries ago, he was first born in Mecca, then he migrated to Medina, he lived this many years in Mecca, that many years in Medina, and it took 23 years for him to receive the revelation. And after him, there happened to be those recordings of his sayings, whatever. But he doesn't do that, but what is he doing? What is he trying to do with this weird, awkward description? He included all the messengers before, even his students, the saints that come after him, also in the description. What is it to do with me right now? Why is he giving this description so that it's going to benefit me now? And expanding the description as such, how does it help me?
I think the answer of that question is hidden in the first paragraph when he talks about there are three great and universal things which make known to us our sustainer. One is the book of the universe, the other one is the prophet, and the third one is the Quran itself, right? So that is really the basis of, I think, how he deals with the subject here. So I am here on this earth, here and now, like in 2018 in Philadelphia. And I have all kinds of struggles that I go through in life. Ups and downs, emotions, emotional, like intellectual, whatever you want to name. So, and trying to have a meaningful life. How am I gonna find it? And what does it have to do with like the oneness of the Creator, or the phrase "there is no God but God"? And how universe describes the Creator to me, and what does prophethood has to do with it? and what does it have to do with message? So like, if you, like, I think if Nursi took the prophet, just the person who lived 14 centuries ago in Arabian Peninsula, which I have absolutely no desire to go there other than the pilgrimage, because it's just not like somewhere that it's like actually even appeals to me. Like, other than maybe spending the night in the desert, like there's no other fun thing to do there as far as I'm concerned. So like, that would be the only relevance that I have. Like, that's the point I am trying to make. Other than that, like intellectually, emotionally, physically, like I have no like attachment or no relation to that like part of the world. So like, how am I supposed to really benefit from that? I think like Nursi, instead of like describing the prophet with like his person, he's actually talking about his mission and the message that he came up with, and links that to the universe and also the message itself that he delivered, the Quran, and telling me when I try to make sense of this life and like look for some sort of meaning, I should be looking for within that context. In other words, like when I interact with the universe and with the speech of the creator of the universe, I should also have the messengership or teaching of the prophet in a way, I should say, maybe, I don't know the right phrase to use. I should have like messengership along with it, so I will be able to extract answers for my own issues.
So then, what is the utility of messenger in this picture of three? So the universe, messenger, and the scripture, he said. So, and he also said messenger is an articulate proof. What does that mean? What sort of utility does it have? I mean, isn't the universe enough? Isn't the scripture enough? Why is there this prophet, first of all? Because on top of that, he's going to expand it, saying that this prophet that I am talking about is not only this historical person, but it's like spanning the whole time.
I'm going to do some nuzuluk. Nursi says like somewhere like Islam is the supreme humanity. I think like in this context, like prophet or prophethood like represents the supreme humanity, which is like, which also what I understand from the seals of the prophet.
What does that mean?
I don't think it has anything to do with like, in terms of the timeline, I don't think it has anything to do with the age or the time that he came in comparison to the other prophets. I think it has something to do with understanding all the human qualities that he had and how he should make sense of it, and the like relations of those like human faculties or qualities in relation to God, like how he needs to utilize those qualities to understand, to know the Creator. You know? And he is the representative, like, of the exemplar of that supreme humanity that was able to put that in practice. If you have to be more practical, there is message that is universe, and there is yourself in that example, equation, to understand this existence, this life, this earth, universe itself. So within that example, you should be somehow able to link yourself to the prophethood or to messenger himself in terms of your humanity, and see what kind of connections you have, what he represents as a supreme humanity, and what you can get out of it, and how he used the creation and the message, the Quran, to train those qualities, those faculties that we have. That's how I think that the process works.
In here, one thing that attracted my attention is he's talking about prophet as the second proof. So first, I opened my eyes, I came to universe, and it's my mother, it is the birds, it is the toys that I play with, whatever. I am first interacting with existence, the universe. And when I ask for something, my mom gives me food, my mom gives me water, whatever. And then I realized that apple trees are giving me apples. So first thing that reminds me about my creator is, before I start hearing about a messenger, whatever, the existence itself talks to me. So this is understandable. So in the second place, he says that the prophets, the third one is the scripture. So, and for the prophet, he said it's an articulate proof. It's a speaking proof. So practically, to some extent, I can make sense of my maker by looking at the existence. But I cannot really fully understand. So I want to get into that university, but I cannot enter to there, let's say, and I am very much concerned about that. So in my youth, this was the problem. As you get older, you are getting some other problems, but you cannot figure out why. Why is that? So I guess I am in need of a human that is going to explain me what the existence means, and in a way that I can make sense of. And
Show me if it's like living.
yeah, so his life is going to be his behavior, his speaking, and even sometimes when he keeps silent, he's going to be how just to give me some answers about my questions. But also it's interesting that he is going to talk to me about the message, which is to come later in the order that the author was giving in here. So the messenger is going to tell me about the message. So without messenger, how am I going to make sense of message? This is another issue, I think.
Without messenger, you wouldn't have the message, like in the form of a speech.
So
I think.
I guess there is this purpose that the message was revealed to messenger, but not to the mountaintop. Because for me, I can make sense of a message rightfully with the guidance of a human messenger. Otherwise, it would be very possible, it wouldn't really hurt, that God would reveal the messages to the leaves of apple trees. Verses are written on the leaves of apple trees, let's say. You go ahead and pull a leaf and read the verse in there, find your guidance. Again, in human speech, right? But message comes with a messenger. And because in the text, he's going to, right now, first Droplet, he told the first message of the messenger, La ilaha illallah, there's no God but God. But in here, he is always going to try to justify the truthfulness of the messenger for me. As if he's going to prepare me for the message. But in order for me to be prepared with message, I need to take the apparent source of message, which is the messenger, as a trustworthy and reliable source. Because with messenger, I should be making sense of the message. But the question is, this man is dead. He died 14 centuries ago. How am I going to make sense of message through messenger? What does that even mean?
So in other words, you cannot really solve the riddle of creation without having the messengership in the equation. So it will be a dead end. You can come to some sort of conclusion, by looking at the, for example, you said, interacting with the things around us, right? Aliyah, the first thing that she does, when she grabs something, she tries to taste it. But it could be anything, and sometimes it's the most stupid things. So she's trying to explore the creation itself, right? She's trying to find her way out, what are those things around me? But when it comes to understanding the proper use of the things, and also proper use of your own faculties, there needs to be someone telling you that, like, this is not for tasting it, actually this is for touching, let's say. Or that thing is just by looking at it and like extracting meaning through the like power side. So I think that is the role of the messenger in life. That's why messengership shouldn't be bad, or shouldn't be someone who lived 1400 years ago and dead already, that I have no connection with.
So this concept of messengerhood should be alive for me, because I am still in elephants. And I guess this is why he is expanding the definition of messenger to span beginning of time until today. Yet he said that he was the seal of the messengers for the Muhammad ﷺ, which lived and died. So he says that he was the seal of the messengers, but his collective personality, which when I say Muhammad, I should be thinking about his collective personality, not only his physical life.
Just one more clarification, like I may be wrong, but again, like I think the seal refers to, it's not something that comes in the timeline. It refers to actually something vertical, that he has reached the pinnacle of his humanity, the supreme humanity, in terms of understanding himself and also using those qualities to understand God. That's why he was the, like in different places when he talks about him, he is the manifestation of the how does he say, like Ismi Azam, greatest names, and each name manifested in him at the greatest level. So, like, which means in terms of understanding the creation and himself, and also that like understanding of God, knowing God, he has reached the point that like, and that also has something to do with his Miraj as well. He has like reached the pinnacle of like the mankind, let's say, or the supreme humanity, that no one can ever achieve that. And that's why like it is the seal, that it's like, because like that is the utmost point one can reach to. I don't know if it makes sense or not. This is why, like, when he was going through in his Miraj, like at different levels, he was meeting with different prophets and stuff, and then like he was the leader in front of the prophets, and he was the imam that led the prayers. I think that all those like refers to what it means for him to be the seal of the prophets.
When you say the concept of prophethood should be aligned with us, so I'm trying to understand this part, because such an understanding, such a concept, I guess, introduces some important and very critical elements, like, because if guidance is possible, if searching for help and finding answer is possible, conceptually, like if it is possible, then I shouldn't feel in a way that whatever I do is, what can I do? Like, and this is all. There is nothing more. I am such a person, I live my life in that way, and this is all I can do, so I should be satisfied with this. If I have such a lively understanding of messengership, prophethood, not every claim can be true. Not every understanding can be helpful. Because if it is possible to find the truth, not to find the truth, but maybe find the guidance that you are seeking for, if it is possible to find the answers to your questions from a quote-unquote reliable source, then you should search for it. You cannot just sit and say, and this is what I have, or this is what we learned from in our culture, this is what we taught in school. We are, in this era, especially we feel it very heavily, I assume, that there are all these different ideologies, all these different claims about life, about truth, yes, truth meaning, about humankind, about human condition, what we are, as he's saying in the third droplet. Where do you come from? Where are you doing? What are you doing here? What is your destination? So these questions are always there. And there are all these different claims about as answers. Some says there are no such answers. These are just made up questions. Some says these are the answers and these are the truths. And there are all these conflicting answers. And there are also an understanding of saying that this is my answer. Who cares about whether it is compatible with rest of the reality or not? This is my answer. But if, again, it is possible to get answers for your questions, if it is possible to receive guidance, if it is possible to interact with a quote-unquote messenger, then I have to take these questions serious and I have to find their answers in the most serious way. I don't know if it is clear what I'm trying to say, but...
No, so basically, like in our life, worldly life, we always look for the experts in whatever we are seeking to, help ourselves with. Let's say I'm interested in learning piano, and I have teachers I'm learning from, but I still look for, that master grand expert teacher, right? And now this is something to do with my life, my existence. And I think that's what the author is trying to highlight, that for your life, Asim, you better look at this, consider this, the second proof. And this is so articulate, as Yusuf was mentioning, that is talking to you, and I must listen to him. That's what he concludes the first paragraph with. How can you ignore this particular expert or this particular proof that connects you to your sustainer or lets you know about your sustainer? This is what your life and your purpose of life is. It is not something that is to be taken lightly. It's not like a piano class or computer science or engineering or whatever field that we are in and the experts we seek. But this is the ultimate or the actual purpose of what my human life is for. So I should not be ignoring this particular, whatever the seal of the prophets means to me. What is he saying? So that's at least by articulate proof and must listen to him. It seems that this institution of prophethood, but specifically what the messengership of Prophet Muhammad means, what is he saying? So that's what I have to pay attention to.
One thing that I felt like I need to clarify about something I said. If he's the, again, representative of the supreme humanity, and if he was the adversary of the Rabbul Alamin, which means God spoke to him, that's what Quran is, right? God spoke to him as the word of all the dominions. Then obviously he has reached that pinnacle, and that inevitably makes him as the seal or the last, if you want, in terms of the prophets, because it's just illogical for someone to reach that point and after that, like another prophet comes and tries to explain like what he has reached from a like lower level, in other words. Maybe that's the reason why Nursi, when he talks about in terms of the timeline, all the prophets or all the people that came before him refers them as the prophets, and all the people comes after him refers them as the saints. Because if one already reached that pinnacle and articulated the message and showed in his life in a way that like so comprehensive, so universal, what is left for the people after him is actually trying to understand the bits and pieces from that universality, which becomes like a branches, and he becomes the trunk of the tree, and the saints or the scholars becomes the branch, and each branch in a way leads you to the trunk in terms of understanding. And also it opens up another door that like it's not just only one branch, there are like hundreds of other branches in the tree that you can benefit from.
So I will say something very controversial, so listen to me very carefully. So then what I understand from the discussion so far, again, if we're taking prophethood as a lively concept, as Osman was saying, if we are referring to institution of messengership, what it represents, and taking as a lively tree with fruits in our times as well. If this is the case, if this is how we take it, then you cannot, of course this is my understanding, like when I say you cannot, I'm just claiming. You cannot say that I will take the message as I wish. Like I will look at the book of the creation universe, and I will look at the book of Quran, and that's enough for me. As Asim was saying, I guess this is a good example. If you want to play piano, if you're taking it serious, you look for the grandmaster. You look for it, something intuitive. It's not something you have to learn. This, feeling the need for a grandmaster is not something external, it's already there. As soon as you want to play piano, as soon as you realize that you cannot play the piano, you look for a teacher. I guess you should have the same attitude. Again, if you have such a lively messengership, understanding of messengership, you should look for your teacher. Again, this is controversial because you can take it.
No, I think it's a good point, and actually it's an exciting point. What I'm gonna say now shouldn't be taken as in like judging for the people, but it seems like this is really the root cause of the problem that is in the Muslim world now. That there is this current that like we should stick with the Quran, and Sunnah is like we don't know. There is a lot of things in the Hadith that do not quite make sense. Yeah, it's like a lot of fabricated stuff, so we cannot separate which one is true, which one is not. So Quran is the only source. Sunnah is very questionable. Like it sounds like it is very innocent, but in reality, I think this current is becoming more and more like stronger. Like these days, it's because the understanding, the people's like understanding of Prophet, they almost like imprisoned the Prophet like 1400 years ago in the Arabian Peninsula. So they cannot take him out of a jail to make him as a role model for themselves. That's why they are left with only the message, the Quran, and I don't really know like how they can really like even take the Quran as a like true source, because that will be a fabrication of him too. Then only thing that they are left with is just the book or the Musaf, let's say, not the book, Musaf, and their own ego, so they can interpret the text any way they like. as their ego pleases. So can you really like how much, let's say, how much guidance can you really take out of that kind of attitude, that kind of approach?
First and foremost,
So like you push the, like the messengerhood or the institution of the prophethood out of your life, claiming that he was the addressee of the God at the first place when the message was revealed. And with that attitude, you're claiming that, like, you know, he couldn't quite understand, or he, whatever he understood is like was applicable for 1400 years ago.
Or he was just a conveyor of the message.
Yeah, and now like I
Mm-hmm.
am gonna do my own attempt to extract the meanings. So it can be very misleading, I think.
I guess this attitude is even shows that with such an attitude, we don't even looking for a guidance. We're just looking for pleasing ourselves. Like, I will study this book, I will study the creation, I will come up with all these great ideas which will help me, make me, I don't know, like, just like maybe like an academic. You search for answers in the creation to make some publications, to write some proposals, the grants, or sometimes to help to someone who needs help, like helping children, for instance, with some disorders or disease. So with good intentions, but still it's not for like guidance. Asking for guidance is not there, because you think you can reach your like answers to your question. You can reach. You don't need to be given this answer, or you don't even need to be explained. You can reach the answers. I guess this is the attitude that we are criticizing here, right?
Just drawing the attentions to, not necessarily.
Yes. Okay, I see.
Like it's like buttoning up your like first button of your shirt and expecting that like you are gonna end up like in a straight line at the end. So like if you take your first step wrong, then how are you expecting to reach the right like destination?
Just to also clarify one thing, since the author in here is not expanding messengerhood from beginning of mankind to even today, so that means this sort of a guidance I'm going to receive from someone even in today. And all the lineage that carried the message from 14 centuries ago to today among people. So in the examples that were given, so this master piano player, yeah, this was, let's say, exemplified best in the life of the messenger himself.
Or in this example, let's say, Beethoven or Rachmaninoff.
So, but in my case, this man is already dead, and I do not have access to them other than some written explanation of their lives, which is again a very limited description of their lives. So, but this becomes another version of a text. But the scripture, for understanding scripture, I was in need of a man, which he himself became a history. So I'm in need of another man or several people which carried this message, and also how the message was interpreted and lived throughout the history, so that I'm going to learn how to interpret the versus the scripture as a human. So through their lives, they should demonstrate how to interpret the message.
One should look for the living fruits.
Yes,
of the messenger.
Yeah, and I guess when he was saying that he's a living tree, and the saints are the living fruits of this tree, so I should have access to them. Because sometimes what's happening is, I mean, I'm just going to show the other extreme of it just to clarify what I was trying to say. So let's say there had been a group of people which said that we are representing this lineage, but maybe they overemphasize some aspects of the religion, or maybe they became the political tools, And as a reaction to this group of people, we are saying that, okay, this, what's that? The lineage.
I prefer the Turkish.
The English word that I'm trying to find a better English word. Tradition.
Tradition.
So this tradition word is being used for two different meanings. So some people are saying that the tradition is this. This is the truth. You do it. If you don't do it, you're going to be out of religion. You're going to go to hell, whatever. And certainly, this is not really sweeting for some people. It doesn't sweet me. So I'm saying that, well, but I have a question. But they say, no, this is already established. What are you questioning further? And not even maybe I'm allowed to question or try to understand something. As a reaction to this sort of attitude, I am saying that, no, I'm going to understand it from scratch myself. And by that, I am also now cutting my ties with any sort of the lineage or tradition, because this tradition of knowledge or interpreting the verse is going all the way back to the messenger himself. It's also part of tradition, or there is a tradition of interpreting verses. There must exist. This is in the verse, in the sentences, Moshe says, explains it as a tree. So it's a tradition. There must exist a tradition. And I have to get in contact or connect myself to this tradition to learn how it had been as like the piano players, because, well, initially, most likely the people in the cave were just hitting something to the stones and making sound, making a music out of that, all the way to invention of piano and those masters of piano players. So there is this tradition of playing piano or making music. So same thing with me. So how does verses are interpreted? There's a tradition for that. So for me being so much fed up with people which are saying that this is the truth, you have to accept it, otherwise you're going to hell, I shouldn't become enemy of the tradition, again, using the same word, tradition of how to interpret verses in their lives.
Can we make a small distinction between the two? Because instead of saying that tradition, can we just say culture? Because when, like, tradition may or maybe should refer to the lineage and the process or the institution of the messenger. But when it comes to like certain kind of attitude, it is more like referring to a certain attitude of a group of people, which has become the culture of those people in the course of time. So I think there's a small distinction between the two. Like maybe it's tradition. The word tradition shouldn't be used for the people who take certain attitudes, but like what he should, how it should be understood, and make it like their own culture and like their own way of like understanding.
Yes.
So like,
yeah, I agree.
I completely like disagree with the cultural understanding of it, but at the same time, I think that tradition should refer to the tree, like the living tree itself.
Yes. I guess both groups are referring to themselves as tradition. So when I'm going to reject something, or just because I am fed up with the culture, as we were naming it, and since they both name themselves as tradition, I shouldn't be attacking the other one or cutting my ties with the other one, thinking that, oh, okay, I'm going to figure out by myself.
I think that's just like confusion in the mind about like not like making it clear for like oneself what is the living like fruits or the tree or the messengerhood and what is actually just the culture like imposed by the ashraf of that culture.
I was reading recently I was reading the book, and it's making a comparison between reform in Europe, 16th, 17th century Reformation, and how at 19th and 20th century Muslims with the politically they are becoming weak and weak, and saying that after Reformation Europeans started kicking.
Let's say Christianity to be
Christianity.
clear. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Reformation in Christianity. So they cut their ties with their tradition, and the Protestantism started to kick in, and then they flourished in all aspects, in science, in politics, in manpower, whatever. And when we come to 19th, 20th century, Muslims said that, okay, why we are weak today? Looking at Europeans, they said that they translated their scripture into a language that everybody can understand, because previously it was in Latin, only the scholars were reading it. Now that they translated it to languages of those nations, every people started understanding the scripture directly, so there's no need for the clergy right now. So they cut the ties with that, but they have a right maybe there, because again, we are going to apply to our case. Some of those clergy were really becoming puppets in the political arena, and they were, let's say, holding the wealth. Church was quite rich, the people were poor. So they said the same applies to Islam as well, 19th and 20th century. And these were the first, almost first times that the Quran started to be translated into local languages of nations. Up to this point, study of Quran was all about tafsir. And the tafsir, the author that I read was saying that it was not readable by public. Yeah, common people was not able to read it because, first, of course, the publication was not widespread. It's handwritten books. But besides, those books were written for teachers to understand. And you have to read those books through another teacher. This was the system. So the tradition was established such that people are going to study the book with a teacher, and then he's going to teach it to next generation as a teacher. But then the translation of Quran was introduced in the 19th and 20th century. Again, as he says, even, let's say, the Turkish Republic, which was a super secular country, it was the people that made the revolution translated Quran to Turkish. And those people do not like religion to really flourish. But they are translating Quran because it has a political purpose in there. It is cutting the ties with the lineage, the tradition that takes us all the way to the messenger. And then once the messenger is out of the picture, the message itself starts dying. So this is why, I mean, in the example of Christianity, people being enemies of the church cut the ties. So yeah, today there might be some sheikhs or imams, whatever, which are saying that religion is ours, whatever we say is the truth. And I might be fed up with that, although they might be saying that I am a sheikh and I am sheikh because of this and this and this institution. They granted me this title, whatever, so they sound authority. Me not liking this authority, rejecting them, if it is cutting my ties with the real tradition that I should be connecting myself with, then I need to stop and think which tradition I am cutting my ties with.
Yeah, just small addition, like when I went to Syria years ago, 2008, 2007, there were certain neighborhoods where like they had this like Islamic schools, let's say, religious schools, where they seriously, like people would come all over the world to study. And there were some like important figures, like scholars, like living in the area, they established institutions. So when you were in those neighborhoods, you would see like a certain, of course, like you would interact with certain kind of people that was quite different than the rest of the public in the city of Damascus. So as soon as you go out of that like circle, that like neighborhood, you would just jump into another like level of people, let's say, that had nothing to do with like the religion, Islam or whatever. So I think throughout the history, those circles wasn't widespread, like it wasn't like readily available or made available to the common people. Only the like people who were like really in search of something, and in a way it was designed for that kind of group. But for the rest of the public, since maybe even there was no, I don't know, maybe this is speculation, there was no that kind of desire, but at the same time we have to rule the public, right? So then all the rules and the regulations come into play, and those rules and regulations to like rule the public, somehow like, we have to take them back to the Quran and the Sunnah and find some sort of justification from the sources. But what happened in the course of the like history, the rules and the regulation became stagnant, but the societies kept changing, and public, the common people, came to a point that like whatever the, let's say, duress that was prepared for the public, let's say in like 300 years ago, didn't fit the public in after 300 years. It's just like it didn't match the reality of the people. People took it as like religion, only the rules and the regulations, where they came to a point that they had to reject it. So like just to like to be fair for at least some of the people, I don't think they are really like rejecting the tradition in the sense that you are understanding or describing. They are more like rejecting the culture that have become the culture, like that has become the culture in the course of the history based on the rules and the regulations. And that was mostly like, let's say, dictated by the politicians or the sultans or the kings to maintain their power. Even like very like recent examples, like even like let's say Saudi Arabia had to come to a point that they had to let the women drive. And like if you like really look for like any kind of justification in the religion, like where they shouldn't be driving, like, and look at the life of the prophet, like what that practice has some, like does it have anything to do with the like essence of the religion at all? So if someone reacts to that and says that this is ridiculous, this has nothing to like this is, if this is religion, I don't accept it, I don't think that should be taken in a way that actually people are rejecting the actual tradition.
So this, I guess this clarification needs to be made and reminded so that this rightful rejection initially shouldn't propagate to places which shouldn't be rejected. Because it's a reaction. I mean, human has, if you start bugging someone too much, he or she will push you back for sure. But when pushing you back, or when we are rejecting it, so with what we are cutting our ties, because it doesn't know any limits. Nobody really, I guess 99% of the people, maybe no one, really goes with 100% falsehood. Everybody is stepping the first step on the right or some sound ground, but the second and third steps might be going in the wrong direction. So yes, the initial rejection might be a rightful rejection, saying that I cannot accept this stupid thing, but the next step should be, but there must be a truth instead of that. It shouldn't be like, there's no truth, so I'm going to make up my own truth. But instead it should be, but there has to be a truth that I need to seek for.
There has to be a guidance, maybe.
A guidance, yeah.
Like, I'm just saying that not to go into like infertile discussions about objective truth or whatever. There must be a guidance that I can receive. It shouldn't be way that I have to make up my own guidance. Awesome. I apologize for invading the discussion. but we have 7 minutes. I guess I can leave the mic to you as
Can I ask
again.
a question?
No, I cannot leave the mic to you. I'm sorry. There's a question here.
I just want to clarify something so I don't misunderstand this, but like all these discussions and everything I've been learning so far from this is we look at the Quran and we interpret it in our own lives with our own experiences. I look at it and I interpret it for myself. So when you guys say this tradition and you can't just do it yourself, I think what you're saying is I go to these discussions and I learn how to interpret it by looking at it through my life. And then after that, I can look at the Quran. Is that what you mean by tradition?
This is what I understood from it, yes. How am I going to interpret for... So everybody is living a life, and I'm trying to understand what it means, right? Something happens to you, some bad action, or something unexpected happens to you, and you're trying to make sense of it. And you cannot make sense of it. What do? You go and you ask a friend, ask your father, ask your mom, I'm going through such a thing. What does it mean to you, for example? So in this very practical example, you're looking for a guidance because you're saying that I and my father, let's say, I are sharing the same common ground of being a human. So he went through some experience and you are trying to make use of the experience that this other person went through. So this is a very practical example. But now in the example of you are trying to make sense of the existence, which you cannot do properly. So you are in need of somebody else where they're going to say that I went through it this way and this is what I understood. So you will see what they went through and now start read it for yourself and see if it makes sense to you as well. Or interpret it within your own condition. How does it apply to you? Because most likely he went through a slightly different way. So he didn't live exactly what you lived, but what he lived through is relatable to you. So by making use of his experience, you are going to apply it to your experience. So how he finds his way. So in this sense, to tie it back to what you said, learning how to interpret from him or from the people that went through the same path as now you are trying to go through. So learning methodology, sort of.
It's, I guess, the same way you learned how to read from a teacher. You didn't figure out how to read scripture or like English or Turkish or whatever language you speak by yourself. You didn't learn how to solve mathematical problems by yourself. You didn't learn biology by yourself. Yes, applying biology or math to solve your own problems, it's still your responsibility. But if you take your problems serious, at least as serious as you take a math problem, you should search for a professor who can teach you proper math.
Can I try to give my answer? I'm going to be like speaking with examples. There are two different ends of this discussion, right? One, Prophet lived and died 1400 years ago in the Arabian Peninsula, and he has some sort of practices to just blindly follow every practices that he did. And you just but not the meaning aspect of the message. It is just the outward physical practices that he had done in his life, and you just blindly follow those, and that is one way of approaching messengership, right? Which is very common. The other approach, like today, is becoming more common. This was probably that was mentioned in this previous discussion. There is now this understanding that Prophet lived 1400 years ago, and in terms of his understanding of life and the existence and the universe, he was Bedevi, which means he was Bedouin. Yeah. He was Bedouin. He was religious. He didn't really know better. And that's why understanding the Quran by him wasn't really at the utmost level, because the reason why Quran was revealed to him, he was the most trustworthy person on earth. That's why the message wasn't distorted by revealing to him. So he just like took the message like a postman and delivered it, and had nothing to do with him, as if he wasn't the LBC of the Rabbul Alamin, like the Lord of all the dominions. So there is this understanding there. So like the question is like, based on what we study, where do we stand, and what is the stratum mustaqim in this understanding of messengership? That we are not going to be blind followers of the rituals or practices that I don't understand, or that I completely like in a way buried in Muhammad 1400 years ago, like in Medina, and now I am as if I am discovering the wheel again that has been already discovered. So he has nothing to do like in my life, and now I am like by myself trying to understand the Quran. I think this is the two extreme points. To me, like Musi is trying to show the middle way by first making you understand like what the messengership is supposed to mean, and what it's supposed to mean to you here and now in your like everyday life.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. الفاتحة.